for the next few days.
In progress.
I just thought it would be important to let you know that we're still waiting for other participants to arrive. So we'll push the start time until 9:30. And at 9:30, we'll start with the participants that are already here. So if you'd like to get maybe a cup of coffee or something in those few minutes, please feel free to do so. Ladies and gentlemen, me again. So the program for the workshop and the monitoring framework have been sent to your email addresses. So if you'd like to be perusing through those documents, you should now have them on your emails. Thank you. To catch up with us. So we'd like to start by doing introductions first. Just give us your name, your organ, and where you work. Maybe we start with the gentleman at the far end.
Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Marvin Mutandwa. I'm from SIRDC, Scientific and Industrial Research and Development Center. I'm the head of programs there. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Shelton Mtunzistole. I am from the city of Bulawayo. I'm a town planner in charge of the informal economy in the city of Bulawayo. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Memory Mtetwa. I'm the Business Development Officer in the Ministry of Women Affairs, Community, Small and Medium Enterprises Development. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Joylene Mushamiriri. I'm a Monitoring and Evaluation Officer from the Ministry of Women Affairs, Small, Medium and Enterprise Development. Thank you so much.
Salibonani. My name is Lorraine Sibanda. I am the National President of the Zimbabwe Chamber of Informal Economy Associations and also the International President for StreetNet International, which is an alliance of street vendors and market vendors present in 52 countries. Thank you.
Good morning to you all. My name is Charles Kombiro, Monitoring and Evaluation Manager, Procurement Regulatory Authority of Zimbabwe.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Bothwell Mshanduri from Ministry of Women Affairs, Community, Small and Medium Enterprise Development, Mat North Province. I'm a Business Development Officer. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Always Chief Hombo from Reserve of Zimbabwe, working under the Economic Research and Policy and Smes Division. Thank you.
Morning all. I am Munyaradzi Mzamana from Ministry of Women Affairs, Community, Small and Medium Enterprises. I'm in Mashonaland West. I'm a Business Development Officer. Thank you.
Morning all. My name is Vincent Chadeumbe. I am from the Department of Deeds, Companies and Intellectual Property under the Ministry of Justice.
Morning. Gambiza Manford Admire is my name. I'm from City of Gweru. I'm the Acting Director, Housing and Community Services.
Good morning, all. My name is Vusi Pango. I'm the Executive Director for Empretech Zimbabwe. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Simbarashe Sbanda. I'm with UNDP in Zimbabwe, Program Analyst for Inclusive Growth, Informality and Social Protection. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Kanelo Nyati. I'm a Systems Developer at the Zimbabwe Revenue Authority.
Good morning to you all. I'm Bigwe Majandu from Small and Medium Enterprise Development Corporation as the Head of Risk and Compliance.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Lechinya Mpinga. I'm from Small and Medium Enterprises Development Corporation. I'm a business analyst. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Cosmas Chikawawa. I am with the National Social Security Authority, NASA. I'm responsible for research and schemes planning.
Morning all. My name is Michael Nyabanga. I am a manager in the Contributions and Compliance Division of NASA.
Good morning. My name is Kudakwashe Mtimbanyoka. I'm a revenue officer at Simra.
Good morning, everyone. I am Judith Iwowe, Provincial Development Officer in Mashonaland and Central Province for the Ministry of Women Affairs, Community, Small and Medium Enterprise Development.
Morning, everyone. I'm Judge Gabriel from the Ministry of Women Affairs, Community, Small and Medium Enterprise Development, Acting Provincial Development Officer for Manicaland Province.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Mupinga Joseph, Provincial Development Officer, Masvingo Province, in the Ministry of Women Affairs, Community, Small and Medium Enterprise Development. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Zanorashe Ruziwe, the Acting Provincial Development Officer for the Ministry of Women Affairs, Community, Small and Medium Enterprise Development from the Midlands Province. Thank you.
A refreshing morning to you all. Skundla Majori is my name. I'm Provincial Development Officer for Mat South Province in the Ministry of Women Affairs, Community, Small and Medium Enterprises Development, full stop.
Good morning. My name is Tingani Dlomo. I am Provincial Development Officer for Bulawayo Province in the Ministry of Women Affairs, Community, Small and Medium Enterprises Development.
Good morning. My name is Gertrude Matsika from the United Nations Resident Coordinators Office. Thank you. I'm happy to also see my colleagues. I once worked with these two colleagues who are sitting here. I hope you remember me.
Morning, everyone. I'm Rangara Banda from the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Gladys Kanyongo from Women as Business Associations of Zimbabwe. Thank you.
Hello, good morning. My name is Bilal Chadoroba from the Ministry of Women Affairs, Community and SME Development. I'm a Chief Business Development Officer. Thank you.
Good morning to you all. My name is Mambrama Bika, Acting Director from the Ministry of Women Affairs, Community, Small and Medium Enterprises Development. Good morning all. My name is Emson Sibanda, which makes me the fourth Sibanda in the room, I think. I don't know whether it happened by chance, so all the Sibandas are. I'm with the United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs, and I'm the Chief of the National Strategies and Capacity Building Branch. Thank you.
Good morning all. My name is Clark Leo. I am Sustainable Development Officer in the branch of Mr. Sibanda, in the branch of National Strategies and Capacity Building Branch, in the Division for Sustainable Development Goals, in the United Nations Department for Economic and Social Affairs. Thank you. Nice to meet you all.
Good morning, everyone. Mudzingwa Trust is my name, Deputy Director Economic Development in the Office of the Minister of State for Provincial Affairs and Devolution, Harare Province.
Good morning, all. My name is Isaiah Sango from the Procurement Regulatory Authority of Zimbabwe. I'm the Monitoring and Evaluation Manager.
Good morning, everyone.
My name is Nyama Torres Piwe. I'm the Director Economic Development in the Office of the Minister of State for Provincial Affairs and Devolution, Harare Metropolitan Province. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Master Mshonga. I'm the National Consultant on this assignment. Thank you.
Okay, we have 2 new arrivals.
Good morning to you all. My name is Sharon Jane Maringe. I'm from Ministry of Women Affairs and I'm a Business and Cooperative Development Officer.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Macmillan Wali. I'm an intern at Ministry of Women Affairs, Community and Small Medium Enterprise Development.
Morning, ladies and gentlemen. Vincent Gwasera is my name. M&E intern, Women Affairs.
I believe we have one more person.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Wisbon Malaya, Secretary General, Zimbabwe Chamber of Informal Economy Associations. Thank you.
Thank you. It seems we have as diverse a range of participants as expected. Just to make sure that we are in the right workshop. Okay, so I'll put up a slide there just to remind us that we are here for the consultation, stakeholder consultation workshop on micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises monitoring framework in Zimbabwe. Our reason for gathering is that we would like to address 2 objectives. Sorry, we'll go on. Okay, yeah. So these objectives, you already have them in the files that have been shared with you, or they should be coming up if you don't already have the file. So the objectives of the consultation are firstly to review and validate the draft Zimbabwe MSME monitoring framework with relevant stakeholders, meaning yourselves. And then the second aspect, beyond the review and the validation, is to strengthen the relevance and contribution to the results monitoring framework of the National Development Strategy 1 and the Zimbabwe United Nations Sustainable Development Cooperation Framework 2022 to 2026. So the objectives are in 2 parts. Okay. What we expect at the end of the consultation is that the draft will have been validated and endorsed by participating stakeholders, that is yourselves. So that means we actually need to pay attention to the content, what is being said, and make sure that we make our comments, recommendations heard. Otherwise, we'll end up with something that you will disown at a later date. And it may be very difficult when you are listed among the participants that were present at validation. So you are the ones that will then have to defend to others, critiques, what comes out of the process. So assuming that you're going to listen and actively participate, the next expectation is that we're going to have recommendations from yourselves on how to improve the relevance and effectiveness of the framework in terms of promoting evidence-based policymaking processes that support MSMEs and enhance their resilience to uncertainties. Okay, so we're not only taking what is being put to us as is, we are listening to it, we are reflecting on it, and we're making suggestions on how to improve. Okay, so that is the second expectation. The third expectation is that the implementation is going to be dependent on yourselves again. So having participated in the discussion, it is expected that the discussion is helping you begin to understand and identify your own roles in the implementation process. So as we reflect on the process, think about what it means for you in terms of the work that you do on a daily basis, in terms of how you would be expected to make input into the processes that come beyond the validation of the framework. And then the last aspect is that, of course, there are follow-up activities that come beyond the validation workshop. So after we've validated and we've made improvements, we move on to implementation. And therefore, you should be able to actually see yourselves in how you participate in the implementation and how that advances the 2030 agenda and SDGs implementation in the country. So it is a working session with active participation expected. If we fail to make comments, fail to make recommendations, then we are failing everybody, because we'll end up with something that may look nice, but is actually not utilized or does not achieve the intended purposes. So I expect that we will all actively contribute. At a later stage, I will go through how we've tried to arrange the program to respond to those objectives and expected outcomes. And in terms of us getting started, I'm sure all of us would appreciate some background. And to guide us in terms of background, we've got Mr. Mabika, the Acting Director of SME and Cooperative Development, who will make remarks on behalf of the ministry. He will immediately be followed by Mr. Spanda from UNDESA, who will also make remarks. After that, we'll then go through the structure of the program. Thank you. Mr. Mabika, please.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Director of Ceremonies, Chief National Strategies and Capacity Building Branch Division for Sustainable Development Goals, UNDESA, Mr. Amson Sbanda, senior government officials here present, consultant developing the SME monitoring framework, Dr. Master Mshonga, representatives from the UN country office, representatives of SME associations, ladies and gentlemen. It is my pleasure to welcome you to this very important workshop where we are validating the micro, small and medium enterprises monitoring framework. The SME monitoring framework is being developed through the support from Division for Sustainable Development Goals, United Nations Department of Economics and Social Affairs, under a project on strengthening national capacities for enhancing SMEs resilience and building forward better to accelerate the implementation of the 2030 agenda in developing countries participating in the Belt and Road Initiative. Ladies and gentlemen, our government takes cognizance of the crucial role played by micro, small, and medium enterprises in the country's socio-economic development. The sector contributes to GDP, provides employment, livelihoods, and facilitates industrialization of rural areas, thereby reducing regional imbalances and assuring more equitable distribution of wealth. The SMEs also play a huge role in the achievement of Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs. Given the significant contribution of the SMEs to development, there is need to regularly track developments in the sector. The demand for reporting outcomes and impact of development efforts has become huge. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been a huge struggle to get timely data and information Hence, we face the difficulties to report on account for some of the work being done by the ministry and its various stakeholders. It is my hope that this framework that we will validate today will go a long way in alleviating this challenge. It is envisaged that the framework will help in tracking and capturing outputs, outcomes, impacts in critical areas of SME development, such as size of the sector, levels of formalization, contribution to employment, fiscal revenue, access to finance, and many other aspects. The government, including various stakeholders, need to ventilate the sector and gather evidence which will inform programming and formulation of policy frameworks. Therefore, the ministry has high expectations on the delivery of this assignment. The monitoring framework is also coming at an opportune moment as the nation is implementing the National Development Strategy 1, which is setting the foundation for the attainment of Vision 2030 of becoming an upper middle income economy. The survey would provide a baseline on what the SME sector is contributing to the economy. Let me take this opportunity to thank the Division for Sustainable Development Goals under UNDESA for the support. Much appreciation is also extended to our various stakeholders for your inputs towards the development of this framework. Your attendance at this validation workshop is further testimony of your commitment towards the development of the SME sector. With these few remarks, I wish you fruitful deliberations. I thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll hear from Mr. Swanda.
I guess this one works, yeah? Good. Good morning again, colleagues. Mr. Mamvura Mabika, the Acting Director, SME and Cooperative Development, Minister of Women Affairs, Community and MSME Development, representative of the Resident Coordinator Office and the UN country team in Zimbabwe, senior government officials, representative of the MSME sector in Zimbabwe, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I'm pleased to join you today at the opening session of the Stakeholder Consultation Workshop on the Micro, Small and Medium-Sized Enterprise Monitoring Framework in Zimbabwe. Please allow me to start by thanking the Ministry of Women Affairs, Community and MSME Development, and to all of you for being here at this critical workshop to review and validate the first draft of the Zimbabwe MSME Monitoring Framework. In response to the request from the ministry, this monitoring framework is formulated to provide regular and real-time information for evidence-based programming and policymaking that expand MSME contributions to the achievement of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and its Sustainable Development Goals, as well as the National Development Strategy 1 in Zimbabwe. The framework is of high priority for the government as it seeks to strengthen policy support to MSMEs in the context of rebuilding back better and stronger from the COVID-19 pandemic and the various shocks the country is dealing with, including droughts, cyclones, and rising inflation. MSMEs comprise the economic backbone in Zimbabwe, accounting for over 70% of all business entities in the country. MSMEs are crucial engines for economic growth and employment creation. Unfortunately, MSMEs, especially those led by women and youth, are disproportionately affected by the negative socioeconomic impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic. with the majority of MSMEs in the country operating as informal business entities, they are less able to tap into emergency relief and stimulus packages launched to support them weather economic shocks. Since the outbreak of the pandemic, MSMEs around the world faced compounding challenges. A 2020 study by the IMF found a large impact on business failures and employment under COVID-19 and absent government support. With the collapse of MSMEs, the level of unemployment has soared, threatening livelihoods of the working poor and groups in vulnerable situations. Facing the COVID-19 pandemic, the United Nations system has acted swiftly to marshal much needed support to MSMEs, together with state and non-state actors. Supporting MSMEs to tackle the socioeconomic impact of the COVID-19 pandemic is prioritized in the Secretary General's report on shared responsibility, global solidarity, responding to the socioeconomic impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic. Supporting MSMEs, protecting jobs, and the informal sector have also become one of the 5 pillars of the United Nations framework for the immediate socioeconomic response to COVID-19. In the case of Zimbabwe, supporting MSMEs and elevating their contributions to economic growth are prioritized in the National Development Strategy 1. It is also underlined in the National MSME Policy 2020 to 2024 and the MSME Recovery Plan in response to the devastating effect of the pandemic. It is in this context that the Zimbabwe MSME Monitoring Framework is being formulated. The framework will timely capture the demands and challenges of MSMEs in critical areas, including access to finance, formalization, resilience, and contribution to inclusive and sustainable recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic. Data and information collected by the monitoring framework will not only strengthen evidence-based policymaking tailor-made to the dynamic and rapid changes in the MSME sector. More importantly, it will provide policymakers with a useful roadmap to maximize the potential of MSMEs in achieving the NDS-1 and the Sustainable Development Goals in Zimbabwe, as well as enable the participation of local MSMEs in the African Continental Free Trade Area that came into effect at the start of 2021. I am pleased to note that based on the extensive desktop research, stakeholder interviews, and fieldwork in Bulawayo, Gweru, Harare, and Mutare, an initial draft of the Zimbabwe MSME Monitoring Framework is now ready. It will be presented at this consultation workshop for the review and validation of all participating stakeholders. Ladies and gentlemen, as the world is gradually recovering from the COVID-19 pandemic, with uncertainties looming ahead, the MSME Monitoring Framework will provide useful evidence on demands and challenges facing MSMEs. It will also be a useful tool to capture and disseminate good practices initiated by MSME entrepreneurs to adapt and stay resilient to uncertainties. I believe the framework will become a useful policy toolkit, strengthening MSME entrepreneurial capacities in the country and motivating their initiatives to capture high-value market opportunities from the growth of intra-African trade and regional integration as spelled out in the African Continental Free Trade Area and the SADC Industrial Development Policy Framework. I would like to encourage the active engagement of all during the 2-day workshop. Your insights and knowledge on the MSME sector in Zimbabwe are critical to validate and improve the relevance and effectiveness of the monitoring framework in leveraging roles of MSMEs in implementing the 2030 agenda in the country. Ladies and gentlemen, the Division for Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs is committed to support capacity building and the formulation of coherent policy environment that maximizes MSME contributions to rebuilding better and stronger in the post-COVID-19 pandemic era, where MSMEs are crucial not only as engines of job creation, but also as agents accelerating inclusive growth and environmental sustainability and the empowerment of women, youth, persons with disabilities, and other groups in vulnerable situations. Going forward, we should remain convinced that international cooperation and partnerships make significant contributions to realizing the aspirations of MSMEs. In that regard, the United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs looks forward to continuing our successful cooperation and partnership with the government of Zimbabwe, the United Nations Resident Coordinator Office, the UN country team, and Zimbabwe's development partners, such as the African Development Bank and the World Bank. It is imperative that we continue to work together to enhance the resilience of MSMEs and leverage potentials of MSMEs as the first responders to protect jobs, sustain livelihoods, and build back better and stronger from the COVID-19 pandemic, particularly in this decade of action to deliver the SDGs. I thank you for your attention and look forward to fruitful discussions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sibanda. So I have a bit of a challenge looking at our program and where we ought to be. And what I would like to suggest is that we have, from 10 o'clock to 10:20, we have a scheduled group photo. So I'd like to suggest that we proceed and do the group photo now, and then we'll come and continue with the program after the group photo. We combine that with the coffee break. Oh, the group, yes, we can bring our coffee back inside. Logistics for the group photo. Okay, so I'm told we have to come to the front for the group photo. It depends on the cameraman if they can, what they can manage. Which is better for at the front. So you're all invited to the front for the group photo. We need evidence to prove that you are here beyond your signatures. 20 past. Let's please be back by 20 past. Your email you registered. Yes. Let me just confirm. What's your name? We let the colleagues that are yet to join us catch up with us. Okay, so what I'll quickly do is take you through the program that we have for the 2 days, and just to show you the key features and hopefully drive home 2 points. One, that being that we need to work efficiently, and the second one, that we have actually provided lots of room for you to speak. And we expect to hear a lot more from you than from any of the presenters. So I'm going to share my screen. So what we've covered so far is we've covered the background, the objectives. We've done the objectives, which was the first part. We've done part of the background through the presentations by Mr. Mabika and Mr. Spanda. We are now looking at the main features of the agenda. And my apologies to those colleagues that have not yet received the email with the documents. I am told there were a few challenges with some of you have such beautiful handwriting. That is, it made it difficult for the person copying the emails to focus on the content. So they didn't get the content right. So we'll recheck the email addresses and try and resend. So we haven't covered the objectives and the background. We are going to have a session that looks at contextualizing the monitoring framework. And that contextual presentation will then be followed by a review draft that we have. Okay. The presentation of the we'll then go through and be based on your inputs. We'll have initial reactions, and after the initial reactions, we'll then break up into group work. And we'll form 5 different groups, which will then be given specific tasks on different aspects of the framework that will then seek to improve. Okay. And that group work will take us to the day. Allowing us to begin our second day on the basis of coming back and giving us the discussions from your groups. So although we've set a time there of 15:30 for the end of the group work, if the group is willing and able to continue beyond that time, you are encouraged to stay on, discuss as much as possible, make the inputs that need to be made, and to the extent that it's feasible for you to give it more time. And then we'll begin our day 2 with feedback from the groups, what the groups have presented, what we are suggesting in terms of improvements of the content and the operationalization and the factors to take into account in the operationalization of the framework. Once we've got that covered, we are then going to have a session where we try and bring about coherence between the suggestions from the different groups. Because you've made suggestions while we are apart from each other, and those suggestions will not necessarily lead us to an action plan or be coherent with each other. So we'll have a session where we actually then look at building the coherence. And hopefully by the end of the day tomorrow, we then have a framework that has been validated and for which suggestions have been made in terms of how we improve its effectiveness, relevance and effectiveness. Okay, so this is the layout of the plan over the day and a half. It's a lot of work to be done in a short period of time. But we trust that with focused effort, we will be able to cover a lot of ground. And the key elements should emerge from the process. Are there any comments, suggestions, questions that I need to deal with immediately? Before it becomes your workshop, it's all about you from here on. No questions, no comments. I will take it that it's okay for us to proceed to the next session. Okay, in that being the case, I'll invite Clark to give us a presentation on the context in terms of how the MSMEs relate with the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development.
Thank you, Mr. Chikendi. I think I follow your good practice to also share my screen here. Can I do that, or I need to go to the podium for the presentation? Okay, I can. I think. Yeah, I'll go to the podium. Yeah. I have already did a share screen from my laptop, but I did not see the slides coming up. Can you please help me show the slides from your computer, please? It's yeah, this one, yeah. The PowerPoint. Yes. Okay, thank you very much. Apologies for the technical problem, but I just quickly want to go through a few slides to introduce the relevance about our work in DESA on MSCs and how it relates to Sustainable Development Goals and building and rebuilding better and stronger. Our work on MSCs start all the way back from about 2017. Until now, we have working in this area for several years. Specifically, we are now operating 2 projects. The first project will be funded by the United Nations Peace and Development Fund, and the second project will be funded by the United Nations Development Account Project. Our workshop on Wednesday will officially launch these 2 projects, so I will not give too much detail about these 2 projects, which we'll present in detail on Wednesday. Next slide, please. Next one. Next slide, please. Here is a map just to show the geographic locations of our MSC work. Until now, we have been working closely with government counterparts and stakeholder organizations in 9 countries across the world. As you can see, we have 5 countries in Africa, including Zimbabwe, Kenya, Ethiopia, Madagascar, and the Gambia. In Asia, we work with countries including Cambodia, the Lao PDR, Philippines, and Sri Lanka. So we work with 9 countries across the region of Africa and Asia. Next slide, please. So this slide shows the famous 17 sustainable Development Goals. The 17 Sustainable Development Goals is an essential part of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. All member states of the United Nations have solemnly committed to achieving the goals by 2030 as an important part to realize the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. And specifically, what are the SDGs that are directly linked with MSCs, micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises? I would like to report to you all that because MSCs are accounting for over 90% of business entities globally, so they are directly and indirectly related to all the 17 SDG goals. So here I just list the 17, I just list a few SDGs that are directly linked with the 17 goals. So here are the directly linked goals. The first one is no poverty, SDG 1. Second one, SDG 2, zero hunger. And third one is SDG 5, gender equality. And fourth one, SDG 8, decent work and inclusive economic growth. Also SDG 9 on industry, innovation, and infrastructure. In addition to SDG 10 on reducing inequality, 12 on responsible consumption and production, and also SDG 17 partners for achieving all the goals. Next one, please. So specifically, this slide shows how MSCs and our work from DESA supporting MSCs are linked with these SDG goals as included in the previous slides, and specifically the targets under each of the SDGs. I'll start from the first row of the table. The first row is about SDG 1, no poverty. Here, we support MSCs globally to build up their capacities and turn them into resilient business entities towards economic shocks and empower them to contribute to poverty reduction by creating jobs and inclusive economic growth. So our work directly contribute to SDG 1 on end poverty. Second row, because MSCs are important and a majority of food producers across the globe. So we support them and we support their contributions to zero hunger globally. And also SDG 5 on gender equality. About 40%, or the percentage could be even higher, of MSCs are led by women. So we support MSCs and also our work globally focus on women and youth MSC entrepreneurs. We support MSCs, women and youth-owned MSCs. In this way, we support the gender equality, addressing SDG 5. Also, SDG 8. When people think about MSCs, perhaps the first impression coming into their minds is MSCs as job engine. MSC provide critical employment opportunities especially for groups in vulnerable situations, providing them employment, but moreover, such employment comprise important livelihood resources for groups in vulnerable situations. So we support MSCs in their role as the job engine, but also in their role as an engine to create decent jobs. That is the centerpiece of SDG 8. And then SDG 9, that is to promote inclusive and sustainable industrialization and also foster innovations. Especially when the world are facing the COVID pandemic, we see MSCs are suffering, but at the same time, MSCs are also the first responders to the pandemic to protect the jobs and also to foster low cost and fragile innovations. MSCs are down to the ground, they are part of the community, providing community members to combat with the pandemic. So we support MSCs and strengthen their role as fragile and low-cost innovation provider around the world. SDG 10 on reducing inequalities. Because MSC is providing jobs, providing income, so we strengthen their resilience and reduce the inequalities, not only from income perspective, but also from other perspective. For example, we support MSCs to get formalized can be better supported, so better participate and access to the social protection mechanism. It is inequalities across different population groups. And also about SDG 12, sustainable consumption and production patterns. MSCs are the majority of business across the world. They are also agents that are strengthful to facilitate sustainable business models, featuring with resource efficiency and waste management and minimizing waste production. We are supporting MSCs to improve their contribution to resource efficiency, addressing SDG 12 on sustainable consumption and production patterns. Finally, SDG 17's partnership to achieve the goals. We noted that around the globe, both from developed countries, but more importantly, from developing countries, countries across the world are coming together to support MSCs, considering their important contributions and their important roles in achieving sustainable development goals. So we are trying to provide our humble assistance from DESA to build up knowledge exchange and collaboration among countries through South-South, North-South, and triangular cooperation models. As mentioned by seniors during the opening remarks, we believe we support MSCs and also support international cooperation and partnerships centering on MSCs. And that is a key to strengthen MSCs and maximize their contributions to achieving sustainable development goals. These are just a few reports about our work from MSCs, on MSCs, and how our work contribute to SDGs. Thank you. I finish here.
Oh, thank you, Clark. We'll make sure that you get the presentation. There was a lot there to absorb, and I myself already saw a number of things that I would like to revisit. I'm sure it will be the same case with many of us. If by, let's say by lunchtime, the documents that have been sent to you have not come through to you, please come forward. Let's look at whether or not we captured your email correctly so that we can provide you with the documents. We'll then make an effort to actually correct and get those documents to you. Now we've had, in terms of the linkages with the SDGs, we had earlier on in the background the linkages with the National Development Strategy. But of course, there's also another important process that has happened before now, which is the development of the Zimbabwe United Nations Sustainable Development Cooperation Framework that the monitoring framework will feed into. And just to give us a flavor of how the monitoring framework relates to the cooperation framework, we've asked Mrs. Gertrude Matsika to give us just a few remarks. I'm sure it will not be a presentation, but just, just a few comments. Over to you.
Okay, good morning once again. I'll just briefly touch on the Zimbabwe United Nations Sustainable Development Cooperation Framework. It's a long name. Those who remember ZUNDAF, how many of us remember ZUNDAF or worked with ZUNDAF? If you can just show by raising a hand. If we heard about ZUNDAF and you worked with ZUNDAF. Okay, just a few colleagues. So now we have moved away from ZUNDAF. We now have the Zimbabwe United Nations Sustainable Development Cooperation Framework, which is the new framework governing the work between the government of Zimbabwe and the UN for the period 2022 to 2026. So the ZUN SDCF, or the CF, I'll say CF in short, cooperation framework, the cooperation framework between the United Nations country team and the government of Zimbabwe has four main priorities. The first priority is on people. The second priority is planet. The third priority is prosperity. The fourth is peace. So in order for the UN and the government of Zimbabwe to deliver on these 4 priority areas, there is the 50 P, partnerships. So the cooperation framework is aligned to the SDGs structured around the 5 Ps, partnerships being the overarching principle for us to be able to deliver on the 4 Ps. So what I'll focus mainly is the 3rd P, the prosperity. The prosperity pillar is the one where most of the work we are gathered here to discuss and brainstorm is structured around. It focuses on inclusive and sustainable economic growth with decent employment opportunities. That is the prosperity pillar. And under that prosperity pillar, among other issues, there is priority for medium scale micro enterprises or micro, small, medium enterprises. These acronyms are also sometimes very confusing. Resilience is strengthening their national capacities for resilience and building forward better to accelerate the implementation of the 2030 agenda. So the work we are gathered here is feeding into the priority pillar, is feeding into the priorities of the UN system and the government of Zimbabwe in terms of strengthening the capacities of the SMEs. So beyond just the monitoring framework, yes, the monitoring framework will help us to monitor and track progress in terms of our commitments. But beyond that, it will help us also to demonstrate to what extent also our interventions and our support has contributed to a change in life, which is the people, because the end result really is not about the monitoring framework, but it is what is it that has changed to the people? What change have we brought? So I can say in brief, that is the relationship and the link. We have a robust monitoring and evaluation framework, which has been developed and it's available. I can email it to Brilliant. I've seen he's sharing documents. I can email you the CF so that colleagues here can also have a look at the CF. As we deliberate on the monitoring framework, it will be good also to reflect on the CF because it is an agreement between the government of Zimbabwe and the United Nations system in Zimbabwe as a whole. And we have 25 UN agencies supporting the CF implementation in Zimbabwe, including UNDESA. I'd say thank you. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Gertrude. So more information for us to absorb and make the linkages between the different processes that are ongoing or that have happened. Without wasting more time, I shall call on Dr. Master Mshonga to present to us the draft MSME monitoring framework. And while he's getting ready, if anybody has a question, you can indicate by show of hand that you have a question you'd like to ask. Okay, yes, sir.
Yes, yeah, we'll be grateful to have the copy of the presentation. Thank you.
Just to reiterate, the presentations you will get. So we are putting together a folder with all the presentations. So you get all of them.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot, Tim. My name is Master Mshonga. I was entrusted with this responsibility to lead this assignment of coming up with a monitoring framework for the micro, small, and medium sector in Zimbabwe. Some of you I did not manage to engage you. Some of our emails went unanswered, but I'm happy that quite a number of key stakeholders are here today also to share with us additional key performance indicators that you think might be necessary to monitor the performance and the contribution of the sector to the economy of Zimbabwe, and also to share with us also potential data sources that is necessary for us to monitor this important sector. I thank those that are engaged previously on my field work who are here today for coming to be sharing with us also their second thoughts in terms of what is necessary and what might not be necessary. So I think I will not give much context to the importance of the micro, small, and medium enterprise sector. I think Mr. Mabika shared it in the context of Zimbabwe. Mrs. Sivanda Emson also shared it, looking in the global context. Clark also shared, I think, in the context of the Sustainable Development Goals, the contribution that is the sector normally contribute to in terms of the SDGs. I would also like to acknowledge also the United Nations also for elaborating further on the cooperative framework. I will not spend much time on that. I think maybe if we can move to the second slide. Thanks on that slide. I think I will not do much. I'm going to present to you just 2 items. That is the introduction to the assignment, the objective of the assignment, what was expected from the assignment, and also to share with you the word presentation of the draft monitoring framework that I have managed to put together with your assistance, with your contribution, those that I have engaged already, and also from your further also contribution today. So basically the objective of this assignment was to develop a robust monitoring framework for the micro, small, and medium enterprise sector in Zimbabwe to strengthen the ministry's efficiency, effectiveness, and accountability for results. So here we are here to try to measure results. If we're talking about the results, we are talking about, I will try to not to be much technical on this in this presentation. When I'm talking about the results, we are talking about outputs from the sector. We are talking about outcomes from the sector. We are talking about the impact from the sector. So whenever I'm mentioning results, I'm mentioning those 3. I think I will be clear as we move with the presentation in terms of what are the outputs, what are the outcomes, and what will be the impact from this monitoring framework as already shared by colleagues that I've engaged who are also here today. So the monitoring framework is expected to capture the demands, challenges, and development results from the micro, small, and medium enterprise sector in critical areas. I think in Zimbabwe, we have got sort of, you hear quite a number of views in terms of the contribution of the sector to the economy. When one asks, what is the contribution of the micro, small, and medium enterprise sector to employment? Policymakers, they throw quite a number of figures. Some of them say 90%, yeah, 90% quite often. Some of them say 72%. Some of them mention 65%. And some go on to mention 50%. Why do we have that inconsistencies in terms of statistics? It also maybe go down to issues of lack of data collection on the sector. Why data collection? We are dealing with one of the important sector. And also we are dealing also with one of the challenging sector in terms of some people regarding it as an informal sector, to some extent. Some of them also mentioning it to be a shadow economy to some extent, whereby transactions, formal transactions are not recorded in the national statistics. So we are going to, I think maybe if we can go to the next slide. So basically, I will not talk much about the United Nations Sustainable Development Cooperation Framework. I think it was mentioned, I better mentioned that I was going to do. I will not talk much about the recognition of the micro, small, and medium enterprises by the National Development Strategy #1. And I'll also not, I'll just mention maybe the government of Zimbabwe is prioritizing the transition from informality to formality by the SME sector to enhance its contribution. I think it's highly captured in the National Development Strategy #1. And also it's also highly also mentioned in the National Micro, Small and Medium Enterprise Policy of the ministry covering 2000 to 2020 to 2021. So that now makes monitoring framework also one of the key tools to monitor the progress that we are making in terms of formalizing this level of informality that we have. Monitoring framework is also key in terms of articulating the performance of the sector and also clearly understanding the contribution of the sector to the overall economy in number of key performance indicators that some of you have already suggested. I think maybe if we can go further. So basically, when we're talking about a monitoring framework, we're talking about a systematic approach to tracking performance and the results. So we need to have a systematic approach of tracking performance and the results, so that we are in a position to make better informed and timely decisions. I think the last survey that was carried out comprehensively on the sector was by FinScope in 2012. And from that period, there's no any other comprehensive study that was done, except maybe the one that was done by Zimstats, which is still in the print, which we are also yet to see and review. So you can tell that the previous most comprehensive study was in 2012, whereby it was estimating the contribution of the sector to GDP, the contribution of the sector to employment, contribution of the sector to exports, and quite a number of other key performance indicators. So we can now see that there was a lag period of almost 13 years without understanding comprehensively the sector's performance and its contribution. I will not go much in terms of what when we're talking about the results and so forth, but I have already mentioned. Maybe if we can go downwards. So now I just want now to move into the monitoring framework that we have managed to come up with together. That is now, I think it was shared with some of you. It's still in the draft stage. I can tell you that we managed to complete some of our field work just on Friday. So there was a short period to come up with this draft framework, but I've managed to capture all the issues that our stakeholders have shared. You can go to the last slide. I don't slides. So maybe if you can open the link, so into the link, yeah, that link, and underline the link, so that we can now go into detail about the monitor. Maybe you can, if you can enlarge it a little bit, as it is in Word. Yeah, maybe, yeah, just scroll up. So we've managed to come up with this draft monitoring framework. in consultation with yourselves. So basically, when we want to come up with a monetary framework, first of all, we need to identify what are the key performance indicators that we want to be tracking or to be monitoring performance on. So identification of key performance indicators is quite important. The indicators must be smart. They must be specific. They must be measurable. They must be, maybe we can go to the other page. They must be realistic and also being time bound. So this process, I think we've managed to engage with you, team, in terms of identifying, since you really understand or appreciate the role of and the importance of this sector to the overall economy. I've been going around the country, engaging quite a number of stakeholders who are also here present in terms of trying to appreciate what are some of the key performance indicators or matrices that we need to be monitoring, that we need to identify and also try to monitor. So maybe if we can go downwards on the table. If we can go, yeah, I think, yeah. Or maybe if we can reduce it to fit one page, that will be reduced so that we can. It's tiny, okay. It's better now. So maybe if you can go the last page, I will start from bottom to up. When you are presenting a monitoring framework or a results measurement framework, normally it starts on the bottom with the outputs. Is this the last page? So as I present, also please also take some notes in terms of other potential key matrices that you think might have. We need also to capture. So this is the last page. Last page. They should be. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thanks a lot. From the engagement, I have managed to from orders. One of the outputs was to appreciate enterprises with local authority operating license. That is one of the key performance indicators. One of the definition of formalization of enterprises is that if someone or a business does have an operating license with the local authority, that is normally regarded as part of formalization. So that is one of the key performance indicator that was identified by our stakeholder. Monitor number of micro, small, and medium enterprises with local authority operating licenses. Then in terms of data sources, where are we going to get data on the number of SMEs with their operating license? The indication is that the local authorities normally capture the data of those traders in their cities who were issued with operating or permits, operating licenses or permits to operate within their the local authorities jurisdiction. So from our engagement also with local authorities to verify if that data is available, from my engagement with City of Mutare, City of Gweru, City of Bulawayo, they've indicated that they've got that data to show in terms of disaggregating that data to show number of SMEs or micro, small, and medium enterprises with operating license. So that will be the source of data that we will be requesting that data from the city authorities. So in terms of frequency of monitoring the number of SMEs, the trend, I think we'll be getting that data on a quarterly basis. It depends on the ministry if they would like to request that data on a quarterly basis or semi-annually or annually to monitor micro, small, medium enterprises with the authorities, rural and urban authorities. So basically, the data will be secondary data that will be collected from local authorities. If there are any issues with any of these key performance indicator, please just write your comments so that we can have a more detailed discussion on each and every key performance indicator, as also as the source of data. If you think there are other alternative sources of data to be monitoring the SMEs with local authority licenses, which is part of formalization, I think also you're also free to share that information. Then the other second output as a key performance indicator is women and disabled and the people living with a disability with operating license, because we believe that every intervention should be gender sensitive and also should be inclusive of those that are living with a disability and also including also the youth. So we also want to monitor also the number of number and percentage of women and those living with a disability with an operating license to check the inclusivity of local authority in terms of also issuing licenses to those people from disadvantaged backgrounds. So we'll be also getting the data also from local authorities. They indicated that they have the data disaggregated by gender, data disaggregated by disability, and also they will be in a position also to provide that data to the ministry on a quarterly basis, but it also depends on the ministry in terms of the frequency of reporting that they might require that data from local authorities and so forth. So here we'll be monitoring the number of women and as well also the percentage of women and the people living with a disability who manage to have operating licenses from local authorities. So that will be the unit of measure on that key performance indicator. Then the third output will be SMEs operating from designated workspaces. The issue of workspace is quite a challenge. I think we are seeing quite a number of traders operating in quite a number of areas in town. Some of the spaces are not designated for businesses. Some of the places do not have the ablution facilities so that they are permitted by the city fathers so that people can operate from those, or business can operate from those facilities. So we also want to monitor a number of SMEs operating from those workspaces, designated workspaces. So here we'll be monitoring the number. The sources also will be the local authority also providing that that data. Then the other output key performance indicator will be number of SMEs operating workspace available from council. So we also want to check also for those SMEs that are operating from workspaces that were provided by the council itself. I think from my engagement with quite a number of stakeholders and also observation after visiting some of the markets, particularly in Gweru, I've noticed that there are quite a number of workspaces that are being provided by the city authorities, but some of them are not utilized. Some of them are 30% capacity. People are moving away from those workspaces to operate on the verandas of the shops and so forth. So also from the discussion with the stakeholders, they indicated that the number of operating workspaces stands available from councils is also necessary to ensure that to check if the councils are providing the workspaces, if those workspaces are being taken by micro, small, and medium enterprises, and also to understand if the space is not taken, to understand what are the challenges, why the space is not being utilized in those cities. Because some of the cities, surely they are providing spaces, but people are moving away from those designated work spaces provided by local authority. So here we will be talking about the unit of measure will be the number of workspaces that are being provided. Then the other output will be SMEs with operating licenses and those on the waiting list. So here we want to see the demand for workspace in each and every local authority, urban and rural, to appreciate the demand for workspace in the local authorities. So for those that are the operating permits and those that are on the waiting list, the 3 cities that have engaged, they indicated that they also have the waiting list for those that have applied for workspace, but we have not yet allocated them, or we are still constructing some of the factory shelves or the workspace environment for them to occupy. So here we'll be concerned about the number, which will also show us the demand for workspace within the local authorities. The data can be semi-annually or annually. It depends also on the preference from the ministry, but the data is available on demand from the local authorities that have managed to engage. Maybe if you can move on the yes. Then this one will be now. Yes, yeah. The other output also in terms of skills development. From engagement of quite a number of stakeholders, they've indicated that quite a number of micro, small, and medium enterprises are not growing their businesses because they lack some skills. So here we are interested in understanding the number of training programs administered or provided to SMEs. I think the ministry will be the source of data on that, and as well as other service providers. I'm happy that the Improtech is also here, which also does provide some training to these startups with high growth potential, or these SMEs with the ambition to grow their businesses. So I think we'll be also monitoring that from the ministry. Also should be aware of the trainings that are being provided to the sector, and also other of higher learning can also be of assistance here in terms of also providing that information in terms of how many micro and medium small enterprises have gone through the trainings themselves. Some of the associations also do provide some training. For example, the SMEs Association of Zimbabwe, it has also provided some training to its members. So there will be also another source of data. And also the Zimbabwe Chamber of SMEs does also provide some training. So those are some of these data sources that we can use to appreciate the training or the skills development that is happening within the sector, and also some secondments or mission visits that can be facilitated by the ministry. They can also form part of the training programs provided to the sector. So we need also to understand, to appreciate the capacity building happening to address the skills gap within the sector. Then the other key output is also access to the designated workspace for SMEs. This workspace can be provided by local authorities, and also it can also be provided by private other private sector players who want to rent out their office space. So also need to be monitoring that in terms of the access to designated workspace by SMEs. So here, I think the data source will be the local authorities, and also some private sector players who will be providing some workspace to the micro, small and medium enterprises. Here we can have that data provided on a quarterly basis. and also we provide just the number of SMEs. So also the other output performance indicator will be the number of operating SMEs. We need to understand the size of the sector itself. It's quite difficult to appreciate the size of the sector in terms of play. You know that the micro, small, and medium enterprise sector is a cross-cutting sector across all. Finding micro, small enterprise, mining, construction, retailing. So we also need to appreciate the size of the sector by appreciating the number of operating SMEs. Here, I think the Zimbabwe Chamber of SMEs is an apex body for SME associations and informal trade associations will be a source of data to provide to the ministry in terms of appreciating the size of the sector. But from my discussion with the members from the Zimbabwe Chamber of SMEs, that they were indicating that membership to associations is voluntary. It's not compulsory. So that gives us a gap in terms of the availability of data, in terms of appreciating the size of the SME sector in Zimbabwe, because membership is a voluntary. So the plea from the association members or sector was to say, if membership to associations can be compulsory, that will make it maybe better to appreciate the size of the sector in Zimbabwe. As the case in other countries, for example, the taxis or the omnibus operators in South Africa, is compulsory for every operator to be a member of the taxi association. Also the same also in Kenya, also for you to operate, be a member of an association, it can be. So that was the request from the Zimbabwe Chamber of informal trade associations. I had some discussion with. So they are saying currently it's going to be difficult to appreciate the size of the sector, given the fact that membership still remain voluntary. Outputs that I've managed to gather from my discussion with some of you. So higher level of results, key performance indicators was that to be in a position to monitor SMEs that have managed to obtain product certification. Those that have volunteered to have their products certified by the Standards Association of Zimbabwe, as the body that normally provide product certification or management processes certification. So that also becomes the source of data, that is the Zimbabwe Standards Association. From my engagement with them, they indicated that for those that they have certified, they have the names also to provide to the ministry to, in terms of, because they also categorize that data in terms of the being medium, small enterprises and those large corporates. So they have got that data, which can be obtained on a quarterly basis, but there is also need to review that data if it is disaggregated to the level that we require. But from my engagement, they indicated disaggregated to some extent to be in a position to categorize it into micro, small, and medium. But so we also need to appreciate those SMEs when that have a certification. So SARS can be a source of So here we'll be looking in terms of, will be just the number of SMEs that have got that are certified by SARS. The outcome will be the social protection scheme for SMEs to bounce back better from crisis. From stakeholders, they indicated that we also need to appreciate what are the social safety nets that are being provided by local authorities themselves, town councils. What are some of the social schemes that are being put by the ministry and also by development agencies to help micro, small, and medium enterprise to recover much quicker from the crisis. So that was also mentioned by also stakeholders, also giving examples in terms of when the COVID-19 crisis hit us. You find some countries like the US, UK, the city authorities themselves giving some funds to these SMEs to recover much better. And also government also providing some payroll payments to employees of SMEs so that they can recover much better from crisis. So the issue of social protection schemes was also mentioned. I think here the source of data, those that will be responsible for collecting data will be the Ministry of SMEs and also local authorities and also development agencies. So that will be coordinating the data from those agencies to appreciate what are the level of social safety nets or social schemes that can be put in place to help the sector to recover much better and quicker from crisis. Then the other outcome indicator that was also identified was the bylaws and licensing procedure streamlining. There was an issue that some of the bylaws in our local authorities, to some extent, archaic. Some of them were passed in 1967, some 1954, and they were not meant to support the current reality that we are now facing, whereby we have got too many businesses being in the micro, small, and medium enterprise sector. So the thinking is that we need also to review. There's need to review those bylaws so that we can make the operating environment much better. And some of those that are supported will be the Zimbabwe Chamber of SMEs as an apex body. So it will be also a source of data, and also local authorities also advising in terms of amendments that might have been made to some of the bylaws. I think there's this website called Veritas. They normally publish the bylaws that amendments that were made in a quite number of town councils. I've seen it for myself. They post those bylaws that are passed, so they can be also another source of data. But mostly, I think the Zimbabwe Chamber of SMEs as the advocacy body, apex advocacy body for the sector, can be also a source of information if they can be concertized in terms of their role also being to advocate for some review of some restrictive bylaws that we have in the local authorities that also hinder the process of obtaining operating licenses. From my engagement with quite a number of stakeholders, they've indicated that it's quite difficult to comply with some of the city bylaws and procedures in terms of obtaining operating licenses. Then the other outcome is the level of women and the vulnerable groups participation in the SMEs. Also need to appreciate that after maybe of SMEs or other associations, have managed to come up with a database, it will be now easier to appreciate the participation of women in the sector. Currently, it's just Smes without any scientific figures being obtained to be in a position to tell the participation of women in medium, small, and in micro, small and medium enterprise sector in Zimbabwe. So local authorities, as also the SMEs associations, can be also a source of data, but the challenge is that voluntary membership to associations still remains voluntary. It also limits the responsibility of the SMEs association to be in a position to tell precisely the level of participation of women, unless if they are to use their assemble database to tell what percentage of their database are women. But that will also leave out some of the members who don't value membership to these SME associations. So the unit of measure will be also number of women and also percentage of women within the sector itself. If you can go up a bit. Then the other is, of course, the other outcome that was also identified by stakeholders was the uptake of the 25% public procurement quota by SMEs. There's an outcry out there that they don't know if that 25% public procurement quota is actually going to SMEs. So there should be an indicator to monitor that that uptake of that 25% quota in the requirement of Zimbabwe that at least 25% of public procurement should be sourced from micro, small, and medium enterprises. So here we'll be trying to monitor the number of those SMEs who have managed to be provided some contracts or procurement quotas, and also the value, and also the percentage in terms of public procurement. What percentage of micro, small, and medium enterprises are taking advantage of that 25%, and also in terms of value, and also in terms of number. From my discussion with quite a number of stakeholders, they indicated that PRAS can have those records, but it's, I think it will be up to this also workshop also to validate those sentiments. I'm yet to meet PRAS to appreciate the records that they have and also the database that they have. But from the stakeholders, they indicated that PRAS will be in a position also to provide those that database that can be used to monitor the uptake of that 25% public procurement. And also Ministry of Local Government and Public Works was also indicated to be also one of the sources of data that can provide data in terms of participation of SMEs in that 25% quota for public procurement. Then the other outcome is the revenue from SMEs to local authority coffers. SMEs, micro, small, medium enterprises, they make a huge in terms of number of businesses in number of in all sort of local authorities. So there's also need to monitor the contribution of the sector to the local authorities, its financial income, so that we are in a position also to advocate for more workspace from the city authorities, so that the sector can also be in a position also to advocate for more hygiene facilities from the city authorities, and also quite a number of other demands based on the contribution of the sector the sector is making to the city or to the local authorities. So that also need also to be appreciated. So that can be in terms of so local authorities will be in a position also to provide that information in terms of from their total income, how much did they mobilize or did they collect from micro, small, medium, in the medium enterprises in terms of license fees and other fees related to their operation in those local authorities. So the data can also be collected quarterly, but the preference is up to the the ministry to see if they can request that data biannually or annually, but the data is said to be available as the local authorities normally they produce their quarterly management accounts. So they will be in a position to disaggregate that data to say from this income, how much was received from the micro, small and medium enterprises. So that will also show the contribution of the sector to the city's financial financial income. Then the other indicator, outcome indicator is the average number of days to obtain an operating license. There's an outcry out there that the city authorities, they take a lot of time to process your application, apply for permit for a license to the day that we are notified that the license is now out. They take a lot of time, so it will be necessary to monitor the turnaround time from the city authorities when you have made an application, be it for property inspection up to obtaining that license. So here it will be, the data can be collected from local authorities themselves, and also the associations, and also can also conduct a survey from their members to appreciate the average turnaround time in terms of obtaining licenses from the city authorities. So here we'll be measuring the number of days that it takes from the day of submission to the day of obtaining that license. So will be the other outcome, SMEs survival rate. There's a lot of literature in terms of how many SMEs normally survive after 5 years. Some of the literature mentioned that 90% normally do not make it into the 5th year, and that some of the into the 10th year. So there's also need to monitor the survival rate of this sector to appreciate if the businesses that are operating in that space, they are there for long term, or they are just there being accommodated because of the circumstances within our economy, which normally pushes people into the informal sector. When the formal opportunities or employment opens up, someone will decide to abandon the business to join the formal employment. So that survival rate also is quite key to appreciate if the sector is growing, if players themselves are also growing, that will also be necessary. But here it will be now a challenge to obtain that data from there to monitor that key performance indicator. As the city authorities might not have that the data itself renew this year. You might decide to operate in the shadow economy. You'll be still in any operating license. So can that business to have died or no longer open, it will be difficult. But to some extent also, if the membership to the Zimbabwe and its affiliates is mandatory, so maybe decided to withdraw membership, or might just maybe to be a good source of data if it's mandatory to be a member of an association. If someone is no longer a member, is no longer in business. So it's quite a debate, but I think this workshop can also suggest if it is a good key performance indicator for the sector, and if it's a better credible data source that can be interrogated to be in a position to appreciate the survival rate within the micro, small, and medium enterprise sector. Then the number of bylaws lobbed for review will be, the responsibility will be with the Zimbabwe Chamber of SMEs to appreciate because because they will be pushing for the review of those bylaws. And also we just will be interested in terms of the number, in terms of their success rate, in terms of lobbying for review of some of the bylaws that are more restrictive than promoting the SME sector. Then the other one will be access to finance for micro, small, and medium enterprises. As you know from literature, that this sector normally is credit rationed from the credit market. So we'll also be interested in terms of appreciating the how many loans, the value of loans that have been obtained by the sector from financial service sector itself. The Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe will be the responsible unit. I think they normally produce their quarterly reports, and also during the monetary policy statements review, they normally provide also an update in terms of the total loan portfolio within the banking sector or the financial service sector. How much of those were provided to the micro, small and medium enterprise sector in Zimbabwe. I think currently we did not, we don't have any alternative source than the Reserve Bank. The value and the number of SMEs with the financial, with the credit facilities from financial institutions. So here we'll be monitoring in terms of the amount, number, and as also percentage of those loans to total loans within the economy. Then the other outcome indicator will be the rate of SME formalization. If we manage to get, if we manage to get the membership to Zimbabwe Chamber of SMEs being a compulsory, then it will be in a position also to appreciate in terms of those that are members to those chambers or to those SMEs associations, how many of them are formally registered with the relevant local authorities, so that to some extent give us an indication of. Normally when you're talking about the formalization, about just receiving from law. Some prefer being a registered company, but a business can be a sole trader, can be a partnership. So just obtaining operating license from on its own is added as a part of formalization, unless there are other thinking. It's a subject to debate, but from my engagement with quite a number of SME practitioners and the policymakers, they just indicated that just obtaining an operating license from local authority, it's enough to show that it's now a legal business which is recognized within the confines of the local authority boundaries. So we regard that as part of formalization. Then I think if we can go on top. So the frequency also itself can obtain that information biannually or annually. It depends on the preference from the ministry. Then the other one will be SMEs products quality certified. I think Standards Association can provide that. They do have a database. Then number of SMEs exporting. We also need to appreciate in terms of how many of the SMEs are now exporting into the continent and globally. I think Mr. Amson Svanda mentioned about the area. How many of micro, small, and medium enterprises are taking advantage of those, the opening up of a bigger market. So we'll also be interested to appreciate those that are exporting to maybe to SADC, simplified trade regime, now exporting to within the region, the SADC region, taking advantage of the SADC free trade area. I think it will be also the level of those that are now eyeing the export market. Zimtrade, Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe, and Zimra can provide some potential data to appreciate those that are now exporting, particularly the Reserve Bank through the CDI forms. Zimra also, they might be also having the database. Zimtrade, from my interaction with them, they indicated that they are sort of like a facilitation agency. They don't have much data in terms of, they might have the numbers of those that are exporting, but they don't have data in terms of the value of exports. So that to, when we want to monitor the value, export value from the small, medium. Then the other outcome will be the employment creation by the sector. It's quite a challenging. There's a definition of employment. I think for some of you who've managed to go through the census manual, the recent census, when they're talking about, when they're defining what is the employment, they talk about employment even if you are doing something that is illegal to be employment. So I think we also need to debate in terms of when we're talking about employment within the micro, small and medium enterprises, what do we mean? Are those gold partners employed, money changers employed, those into drug trafficking employed? So also need, but when we are talking about the SME sector, sort of like, I think we are talking about the legal economy so to some extent, but we had a discussion in Mtare with the one of the policy makers when he was talking about the definition for employment as enshrined in the census manual, that it also encompasses those activities that are at some extent regarded as illegal. So employment is quite a challenging, but the Ministry of Labor normally carries out labor surveys, so they can be a source of data. Presently we did not identify another source of data that we can be in a position to gauge or to assess or to monitor employment creation within the sector itself. But I think maybe this also forum can also provide that that insight in terms of other potential data sources apart from the labor surveys that the Ministry of Labor normally carries out, sometimes annually, sometimes once in 2 years, and so forth. Then the other one will be the access to export market in terms of value. I think we've also already discussed that Zimra, RBZ, Zimtrade can be sources of data. We can obtain that data annually, or maybe biannually it can also be obtained. So BA will be unit of measure will be the foreign currency unit of USD to appreciate the value that has been generated by SMEs through export activities. Then also the contribution to exports, that is the percentage of exports from SMEs over total exports. Same data sources also can be used. Then tax revenue contribution. Quite a number of the SMEs normally they make a contribution to revenue streams, which is collected by Zimra in terms of payroll taxes, in terms of corporate taxes, in terms of sales taxes, VAT, and other licenses, are also to monitor the contribution of the sector to tax revenue. Zimra is definitely our I think guys from being a position also to guide us if that data can be is available, and also if it can be disaggregated to appreciate the contribution of micro, small, and medium enterprises to total tax revenue. Then here we are talking about, we are not talking about impact, sorry. Then the other one will be the SME contribution to GDP. Normally, there are a number of figures that are being thrown in terms of contribution of the sector to GDP. Maybe, but there is no consensus in terms of the source. From our engagement with the stakeholders, they indicated that Mscs can be in a position also to give us the contribution of the sector to GDP, if they can be in a position to disaggregate that data. I haven't engaged the Mscs. Our emails went unanswered, but I think from the guys who are here, they can be in a position also to assist us to what extent that data can be disaggregated to appreciate the contribution of the sector to the overall economy in terms of gross domestic product contribution. Maybe can you go, is there anything else? I think that will be the last one. I think that's the last one in terms of the key performance indicators team that stakeholders have managed to identify, and also the data sources where we can obtain that where we can obtain data to monitor the performance of the sector, where we can obtain data to measure the contribution of the sector to the overall economy, and also the responsible units that hold the data, and also the possible frequency at which that data can be obtained from those sources, and also the unit of measure. I think I will end here for discussions in terms of other possible indicators, in terms of debate, in terms of data sources for each and every possible indicator, alternative data sources. I think I will end here. Thank you very much for your attention.
Okay, thank you for the presentation. I already see there's a hand up. Shall we proceed and let you ask your question?
Thank you, sir, for the presentation. I have a question on one of the PKIs, access to export markets. The data source there, you said Statistics Botswana World Bank database. Is there a specific reason why you're saying Statistics Botswana, or it was a typo?
I think it's a typo error. Sorry for that.
Thank you.
Yes, please proceed. Thank you. On the outputs, this first slide that looked at the outputs, I was thinking that maybe instead of having a double barrel indicator, we should separate the waiting list and those that have already been licensed, because there are two separate powerful metrics already, which you can produce a report just for those on waiting list and those that have been licensed, if we collect it nationally. I think the same with the impact on employment creation on the number, those directly employed on full-time and part-time. I think if we make them separate indicators, we will have valuable information that we will not miss, or one of them will not be submerged by the other. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the comprehensive presentation. My thinking has just been going through the document, and I was considering what I felt is very critical is, and you'll have to excuse me, particularly the ministry, what is our actual definition of a micro? What is our definition of a small? What is our definition of a medium? Because you're going to expect certain stakeholders to assist you with information which has no structure and clarity. Who is now graduated to be a medium? Because how do this information when we cannot even define? In my view, when I look at most Zimbabweans, I actually think everybody's an SME. And you may as well, as a ministry, you may as well be the Registrar General, because everybody is interested in creating money. And whether it's in individual, and even particularly when we come to registration with the council authorities, they used to call them hawkers licenses for individuals who would want to trade door to door. Which one are we interested in here? So that on what they intend to do. So I think consider every other thing. I want to persuade particularly the ministry to give us clear definitions so that we know what information has to be and who's excluded and who's included. What we're talking about is whether there are quotas for tenders. Everybody will just swing to the side where tenders are being issued. At a certain time, they'll become small. Another time, they become medium. If you yourselves as the ministry do not have a clear definition for everybody in Zimbabwe, they would not know how to work with this. I think that's my initial point. There are a lot of things that I'm still looking at in the document, but to start with, I'm sure it will help us if we have something from the ministry around that. Thank you so much.
We'll finish with that draw first, and then we'll move the mic this way.
Thank you very much.
Sorry,
And
you have a
thank you. Thank you for the enlightening presentations and the last presentation of the monitoring framework. I also have many comments, but I will try and zero to something that can help to guide us. A lot of the things in this framework was being left to, we shall task the Chamber of SMEs to lead in such and such. So my first question is, if it's the Chamber of SMEs, what happens to, for instance, the Convention 87, ILO Convention on the freedom of association and protection of right to organize for the rest of, as well as the people working in the SMEs and informal. When we say it's going to be mandatory, is that not an infringement of such rights? Then I'm also looking at the definitions, just as my brother has put this forward. We have a rich source of definitions from the ILO conventions and recommendations. As a member state, and also looking at the fact that this process is being assisted by the UN, of which ILO is part of the UN family, I think we should be presenting something much more substantial. And when it comes to, there was mention of employment creation economy. We have no clue how to do that, but labor standards that can guide us on that. I'm not going to bore this room by giving details, but I will also share on email the labor standards, the ILO, that can help us to do that. Thank you.
Shall we take one more before we get a response?
Thank you once again for that presentation. Maybe to show the importance of the issues that have been raised by other colleagues. From a local authority point of view, also I need to pose a question on definition of MSMEs. That will be very critical. Also, from a ministry point of view, are we sure that, I think you were referring to it as the Zimbabwe Chamber of SMEs, something like that. Are they there in all the cities? Also, there is a gap that exists from a local authority point of view, but I'll show how maybe in the city of Bulawayo we've tried to close that gap. But there's a feeling that there is too much a gap between the ministry itself responsible for these SMEs and the local authority themselves. And that gap is serious, because you then find that there are people who say we are aligned to the ministry, and yet the licenses must come from the planning authority, which is the local authority. So there's that a huge gap. But maybe from Bulawayo, what we have done, we have said possible maybe we need an apex body that will include the ministry, that will include the local authority, and also that will include the associations, so that we try and close. But not only that, of course, at that stage you get it with the ZRP license and inspectorate, and then the Ministry of Local Government. So that we try to close the gap that is there, because you find that we're operating in parallel, but the objective, it seems there is one objective. Then also, there's on the length of the procedure of acquiring a license. Possibly, I think you also need to complement that with the cost towards registration. I think it's also critical. Then issues to do with the, I saw you referred a lot to the local authorities being the data sources. Let's look at issues of plowing back what has been collected. Ring fencing of those revenues, I think it will also be critical to say, are we plowing back to the sectors, and are these monies, ring fenced? So those will be my, and maybe last one will be the number of meetings for dialogue, because it's very critical that these that we call SMEs, micro, small, medium, do they have a platform of their own where they meet, and is the ministry, is the associations, is the enforcement agents, do they have such a dialogue platform? So you'll find that in the city of Bulawayo, we're trying to say, let's have these meeting monthly, but you find that they are growing on a monthly basis because others are saying, indeed, we must belong here. So those will be my issues. Thank you so much.
Okay, let's maybe hold taking further questions. Would you like to respond to any of the questions? Do I need to run through some of them?
Yeah, no, thanks a lot. Let me try to respond to some of the suggestions. I would like to acknowledge the suggestions provided and the other possible key performance indicators highlighted as well. First of all, I think I'll make some amendments to the sheet whereby it is pointing to Botswana. I think it's a typo error. It's a typo error. I don't think it's a typo error indeed. Then the other one is the demand for workspace to be separated from those with the workspace. I think from those that are from the waiting list, I think I will need to disaggregate that that KPI so that we have got a number of entrepreneurs on the waiting list for workspace in the waiting list for the work in the waiting list of local authorities. I think I would disaggregate that. The same also with the employment creation in terms of full-time employment and also part-time employment. The scope to disaggregate that key performance indicator. I will not touch much about the definition of the micro, small, and medium enterprise. I think my colleagues from the ministry will respond to that much better than myself. Yeah, the issue of membership to SMEs Association. I think we brought quite a serious issue in terms of right to association. We don't need to violate that, but it was just a suggestion from colleagues. But I think as the United Nations, I think we don't need to violate that rule in terms of right to association, to force people to be members of the apex body or affiliates to an apex body for the sake of knowing the size of the sector. We will not. It's something that we'll discuss, but we'll consider taking away from our monitoring framework, as it violates the fundamental issues around freedom of association. I think I welcome also if the sharing of the ILO labor standards. Thanks a lot for that. I'll make a follow-up on you to those materials so that I can also inform or guide the design or the some of the KPI, sharing them much better. Thanks a lot for highlighting that. The issue of the Zimbabwe Chamber of SMEs, we mentioned that are they in all cities. It's very true. We had some discussions with them. Currently, they are not represented in most cities or in most rural local authorities. They've taken some time to be well represented, to have some structures maybe, but in some provinces they've got some district structures that are in place. Whether those structures are functional, I think is something that I also need to interrogate further with the leadership of the association. But from my discussion and my discussion, it appears that they are not well established across the country in terms of the districts, to appreciate much better within their local communities. Yet they are also an apex body for SMEs. As I've already mentioned, that SMEs are cross-cutting across sectors. You find so SMEs expect also them to have some structures. I think since they are a baby, the ministry can be in a position also to respond much better. Do we have the response in terms of how and how they consider their structures to be going forward. Then the other issue that was mentioned is the cost of licensing for SMEs. I think it was well said. I don't know why I left that one out. I think I will reconsider it. It was mentioned in our number of discussions, whereby people were talking about the cost of licensing. When I was in Gweru, one of the entrepreneurs mentioned that they normally pay $10 per month. some of the fruit and vegetable workspace, people are moving from those, just not to pay $10 per month. And then they're operating on an open space. So cost might be a challenge to them. I don't know. But cost has been an issue well highlighted as one of the potential key performance indicators. Yeah, thanks a lot for highlighting the issue to do with the huge gap between the Ministry of SMEs and the Ministry of it was mentioned. It was mentioned, but there's no indicator to capture it. It was mentioned. Yeah, it's a one issue. In Gweru, we visited him. It was in one of the workspace shells, which is just about 40% capacity. The city is said to be proposing to convert that workspace, which was a donor funded some. They want to convert it into a preschool. It's an area of concern. That relationship, I think people can be maybe government officials here can be in a position to say much in terms of how to strengthen the working relationship going forward. But I think it's a good working relationship. But yes, of course, there are here and there issues that might need to be ironed out in terms of that relationship. Dialogue sessions, I think, thanks a lot for highlighting that. Previously, I think it was dialogue was defragmented because there are quite a number of associations in the local authorities. For example, in Blair, from Blair, from Blair, there's BVTA, there's Buta, there's Zimbabwe Chamber of SME. What else, Ms. We did meet quite a number of them, but I'm happy from our discussion with them. They indicated that they have harmonized their working relationship. They have formed the working group so that they can engage with the city fathers, these authorities, with one voice. I recommend them for taking that initiative. But there are quite a number of associations. To some extent, they thank you for that. I think other colleagues will also come in. What else? I think that's what I can say for now. Thank you. Thanks a lot for those contribution team. I think I will let the ministry team to respond to the definition and also the working relationships with the local authority ministry.
Okay, I'll ask the ministry to respond so that when we carry the issues forward, we can build on the discussion rather than keep revisiting the same territory. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for the issues that have been raised. In terms of the definition of SMEs, it's clearly laid out in the SME Act Chapter 24.12, which defines the parameters for determining whether a business is a micro, small, and medium enterprises, depending on the number of employees and the value of assets. What we can basically do is that we can avail a copy of SME Act so that we are at the same level in terms of the definition of what an SME is. So there are values there which determine the value of what an SME is. So what we will share with you, that definition, so that we are at the same level when defining SMEs, what an SME is. And then the other issue that I would like just to respond on is on the issue of the associations. As a ministry, we recognize that an association is a voluntary organization. Someone affiliates an organization they feel will represent their interest. As a result, with various associations, SMEs, that the one that you have mentioned, sector-specific assets that we deal with. Association, some representing SME platform that we feel we have this the SME Association of Zimbabwe, which is present here. We work with them. The CHIA, which is here, we also work with them. And various vendors association, we work with them, including those in the transport sector. So the right to association, we uphold that as a ministry. Yes. Thank you.
Okay. So from what I've understood from the discussion so far, I think when the presentation was initially made, with indicators at output level and outcome level, and the ones at output level had focused on the size of the sector, formalization skills, and social protection. From the rounds of questions, the comments that we've had so far, it sounds as if we need to be adding to those indicators something related to forums, something related to coherence, something related to reinvestment, and something related to representation. So that we are not boxing ourselves in, we actually do measure the representation as an end on its own. Okay, so this is what I've understood from the comments that we've had so far. If any of the colleagues would like to add anything, please feel free to do so. If not, we take the next round of comments. I think we'll start with Ms. Bango, because I think her hand has been up right from the outset, and I was biased and started at the back.
Thank you so much, Director of the meeting. I just have a few comments that come from the presentation, and thank you so much, Doc, for your presentation covering all aspects. When I looked at this, my mind raced to another work I think that is still being done with the Ministry of SMEs. That's looking at the regulatory environment, et cetera, because I think the projects are related. But when I looked at this, I thought about cross-referencing. Because when we talk of ZIMRA, when we talk of NASA, when we talk of our different ministries and all the other stakeholders, you will find that as an SME, my name can appear in all those different offices. So how do we then avoid double counting me as an SME? So let's look at how we can cross-reference the information that we are picking up. I don't know how that is going to be done, but it's something that just popped in my mind that Bango Enterprises could be Bulawayo City Council. It can also be reflecting in ZIMRA because I'm ZIMRA registered. It will reflect in NASA, and understand now we're coming up with a NASA certificate that I need to have as an entrepreneur to ensure that I can open a bank account, without which certificate I cannot do that. So I think let's think through that as we develop our monitoring tool. The other thing is, again, because of we're picking the information from all these different offices, we're obviously looking at formalized enterprises. And invariable, most formalized enterprises will fall. I think I'll stand guided here by the ministry's definition, but I think most formalized enterprises will fall under small and medium. Normally, the majority of our micro, you will find that there are those that are still informal. So again, I think let's think through that one as well. And then the issues around ZIMRA and NASA and the certification, I think it's common knowledge that most businesses and mostly our SME sector, they find the two bodies as, particularly ZIMRA, let me focus more on ZIMRA because the NASA certificate is still to come out, or is come out, I'm not sure. But ZIMRA, obviously, we will find that most SMEs find it difficult to pay taxes, for whatever reasons. So they find that the whole idea of contributing to the tax base of the economy is a hindrance to their operations. I'm not sure, I really don't know, but is there a difference between how we tax our large corporates and how we tax our small and medium enterprises? And if there is, that would be good. But if it's not, maybe it might not be the right fora. But speaking from the side of SMEs and being somebody who works with SMEs a lot, maybe it's an opportunity to start thinking of how we can encourage more SMEs to be compliant with our ZIMRA offices, to be compliant with our NASA offices. Because in the majority of cases, nascent businesses, startups, they need support. And I think of, I might be wrong here, but I think of the way Botswana used to support small businesses as they start. They would give them tax breaks. And I think for a good 3 years, they would not be paying taxes, just as a way of making them start and establish. And then from there, they go to them and say, you need to start paying taxes now. And I think just a comment on the membership association, but I know our good dog there has already said that was just a proposal, but definitely, again, looking at it as an entrepreneur, for me to be a member of an association, there's got to be value. What are the benefits? If I'm not benefiting, I will not be a member of any association, whatever the case. So just a thought on that one. Thank you very much.
Can I come in? Can I come in virtually?
Thank you
Hello?
for the presentation.
Hello?
For me, I think I'll jump a number of points because some have already been said by just the previous speaker. But I also wanted to comment, starting from the statistics which you were sharing. I think you referred to FinScope survey of 2012. So I think we have the ZimStat survey of 2014. We also have the ZimStat survey of 2019. They have very good information which can add value to your research information. It covers especially the area to do with the informal economy, and I think that can help in terms of understanding what we are talking about. Then I also go to the other point where you also shared on issues to do with skills development and growth. I think it's also important to monitor the issue of finance participation in the SMEs. Is there the opportunity for people to access finance so that they grow? We can call it financial inclusion. I feel it's a very key tool to monitor because there can never be growth without financial support. And I heard when you mentioned earlier, it's part of the pillars you are working around. So for monitoring purposes, I think financial inclusion and what surrounds the conditions for people to access that finance need to be monitored. Then we also go to issue of, I think the previous speakers just shared about that. I just said we need to incentivize and motivate the people in the SMEs or in the informal economy either to be registered and apply compliance. But we may also need to monitor the level of vulnerability of the space. Mainly, I will focus on the informal economy because of the nature of our country at the moment. The level of vulnerability now, and as the project goes ahead to also assess whether are we reducing the vulnerability levels? I can give a very good example in terms of, I think we have now zero tolerance towards corruption as a country, but there are a lot of corrupt activities happening in the informal economy, especially when they are trying, like those who are trading in the streets, as they are trying to run away, from being arrested. There is a lot of corruption taking place, which is not pleasant. So we need to monitor all those things. Then we go to the issue, I think the issue of membership has been tackled. Then I also want to refer to the issue of, you talked of archaic bylaws. That's very correct. And I think you also mentioned what people say in the sector, but just buttressing what has also been said, we need to make sure all key ministries to do with the SMEs and the informal economy participate or have a platform to put together their understanding of the space and how to deal with that space. I'll give a very good example. Ministry of SMEs, Ministry of Local Government, Ministry of Health comes when it comes to disaster, Ministry of Home Affairs, Ministry of Youth. All these are key ministries. And if we don't have a space where they all harmonize their understanding of the sector, each ministry can come from a different angle to provide certain conditions which can conflict what the other ministry is doing. Why am I saying this? Ministry of Local Government is working now on the formalization strategy of the informal economy, which is a very good process. They've done consultation across the whole country, and we have participated meaningfully. And that information is very key, even towards this approach which is being discussed at this place. So now if we don't have access to that effort from the ministry, you discover along the way, there can be a mismatch in the effort, which then will affect our targeted outputs, outcomes, and indicators at the end of the day. Then the last is about research. I will also, on the ILO standards, please consider seriously looking at ILO recommendation 204 of 2015, which speaks to the transition from informality to formality. It has got many key points which can contribute towards this action. I believe the ministry understands this document pretty well as well, because they have really worked around it in an effort to harmonize the operations of informal economy and SMEs. I think, yeah, for now, this is what I can say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the comments. Just as a reminder, before we take more comments, earlier on I presented to you a program which was for today and tomorrow, but our work actually continues until Friday. And what we would like to do today is to focus on the monitoring framework. The other issues that we've raised, yes, they are relevant, but we still have more time to go into those issues between Wednesday and Friday. So if we can focus primarily today on how to improve the framework. So there are things that are clear that have been raised that clearly need to go into that framework. So the obvious ones for me is we need to be tracking the availability of forums. We need to be looking at coherence between central and local government and between government departments. We need to be looking at representation and participation in representative bodies. We need some indicators around vulnerability, and then we need some indicators around incentive structures. So those are 5 things which clearly suggest that we need a bit more into the framework. So if we can focus our comments on things that will add into the content of the framework, then the operational side of how do we actually then do things, then we have between Wednesday and Friday to discuss those aspects. Thank you. So we can take more comments then.
Okay, thank you. I hope I'm going to explain this in a way that everyone is going to understand. My issue is the issue of our data. I was looking at some of our key performance indicators on this sheet, and I don't know. Yeah, firstly, it's a question that when you decided to come up with these key performance indicators together with the data sources. Did you try to approach the respective agencies who are going to provide this data? Why? Because I can say that most of the agencies who provide this data, some of them, the chief, we can say Zimstats, it provides most of the data, firstly. And some of the agencies on this sheet, they collect data from Zimstats. So you might think that you are taking data from different agencies, but you will be actually taking data from the same agent, that is Zimstat, for example. RBZ, it collects some of the data from Zimstats. So you might go to RBZ and say we want data for this indicator, but you'll be actually collecting the data from Zimstats. And then the other issue is, I can see that the data, the key preference indicators, some of them we are missing a lot of indicators on this sheet. Firstly, I have a practical experience when I was trying to, to register an SME with the Gwere City Council. I've noted that when you are talking of the local authorities, you are mainly looking at those micro enterprises, the sole traders, those who sell vegetables, but then there are other SMEs who doesn't need to have only the local authority license. For example, when I was registering an SME, they said we need the license from EMA, we need tax clearance, and we need a certificate of incorporation for us to give you a license. That was the local authority for you. So it means that there are some who doesn't need the local authority license. They might say, for now I have the EMA license, I have tax clearance, I have certificate of incorporation. I can do what I need to do without the license from the local governance. Therefore, what it means is that if you just look at those that are licensed by the local authorities, you are missing those who are required to provide some of the licenses first before they are given the license by the local authorities. On the same note, we can see that some of the agencies, they also collect the same data from local authorities for them to come up with the number of SMEs and whatnot, some of the indicators that we have here. So my issue is, if we are to come up sort of with an index that incorporates all of these key indicators, it might be misleading, and it might have data from the same, it might have data from one agency or two agents. At the same time, it might have a duplication of data. Maybe the data that we say come from the local, that we say it might come from the Zimstats, it might be provided by some other agencies. So we need to have clarity, and we need to engage these data sources, these agencies, and clarify their sources of data, their nature of data, to see if we are missing something out. Because if you go to Gwere City, you can see that most of the SMEs there, they operate with tax clearance. Some they operate with license from EMA. Some they operate with a license from the local authority only. I don't see EMA as our, I don't see EMA on this sheet. At the same time, I think it is also wise to approach the registrar of companies of Zimbabwe, so that it provides us with number of companies that are registering every day, and the nature and the nature of their businesses, so that we also incorporate the issues of nowcasting. The main problem is that we might try to have historical data, but then it will take time for us to have that data. Why? Because we are trying to find data from many agencies. Some they may delay. So the issue is that we are mainly dealing with secondary data. In secondary data, have so many problems. The reason why we have poor data, mostly maybe in Zimbabwe, is because the data that we have is secondary data, which might take time to be produced by some other agencies. They might take a year, 4 months, when we need it for nowcasting purposes and for forecasting purposes. So we might probably be depending. We might probably have too much dependence on the authorities. Is there anything we can do so that we avoid too much dependence on secondary data?
Okay, thank you. I think the point is taken. We've heard a lot from the people on the left side of the room. Can we hear from the people on the right side of the room? Okay. Any hands on the right side of the room?
Okay, proceed.
Okay, thank you. Mine is on the measurement of formalization. I'm considering that under the indicators, we consider also issue to do with governance, to say, do these SMEs have proper government structures within themselves, like also the management structure, sorry, excuse me, and also having proper books of accounts as a monitoring indicator.
I saw one more hand, yes.
Thank you for the template which you have shared with us. But I just wanted to maybe remind stakeholders that as we conclude or as we come up with a framework, the framework, we need to be mindful of the government's thrust on devolution. Because I was just looking at the indicators that we have. These indicators, they are mainly focusing at national level. Like for instance, if we take the first one, level of GDP contribution by SMEs to the country's total GDP, that's at national level. But now planning is going to the local authorities mainly in line with that thrust on devolution. So we need to go further in saying by province, what's the contribution of the SMEs to the country, to the GDP per province? That then becomes indicative of what is happening in our respective provinces. I think we were listening when we were doing the introduction. I'm coming from the provincial office. So statistics at national level, yes, but now the planning, we are looking at it at provincial level. So our framework should be reflective of that government policy. Thank you.
Okay, anybody on the, yes. So we'll take the two comments on this side and then we'll come to the people close to me.
All right, my contribution is on the number of operating MSMEs. Probably would want to visit the ministry. It has community development officers who are dealing on a daily basis with these people. They might provide you with some information as well.
Okay, thank you very much, Doc, for a detailed document. It's a quite voluminous and detailed. So I wanted to add on in terms of women and disabled persons having operating license. Can we also include youth so that we capture the special groups? When we include women, we include also youth and persons with disability. Also, can we also include another indicator, a performance indicator of SMEs who have been exposed or participated on regional and international explos, so that we can track the number of SMEs who are participating in these forums, where they will be marketing their products and exhibiting their products and the services. Thank you very much. That's part of my contributions.
Thank you. So we'll come to the colleagues in my row that had their hands up. Shall we start with you, sir?
Okay, thank you, Dr. Mshonga, for the presentation. I just wanted to highlight some few key areas which I noted. You indicate that you did not manage to consult with the Zimstats. I think this framework will not be complete without visiting Zimstats, since it is a very key institution in terms of data. It's one of the main sources of data in the country. So it will be very difficult for the framework to be said to be complete without consulting Smes. And I want to concur with the gentleman from RBZ who indicated that we may indicate some institutions as a source of data, but while they get data from Smes. So before we conclude the framework, I think there's need to consult Smes. If you encounter any other challenges, then we need to facilitate you to get in touch with the Smes. And then also, I want to comment that as we think around this framework, and also suggesting the KPIs, we should be cognizant of the practicality of getting data out of those KPIs. Yes, we may need to have so many KPIs, but in actual fact, we have difficulties in terms of then getting data from those KPIs. So we need to really focus. And also from the institutions which are indicated as data sources, we also want to hear from them the present status in terms of their capability to disaggregate data according to the micro, small, and medium enterprises, so that really then after this exercise, we'll then be able to track these results. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Spanda.
Thank you, and thanks, Shonga, for interesting presentation. My first comment is, as much as we can, let's try to have disaggregated data, right, for most of our indicators. When we're talking of employment creation, can we get that data disaggregated? We want to know how many women, how many young people, how many persons with disabilities, you know, the critical groups that we need to support. Coming to the issue of the impact of COVID on MSMEs, what we learned, actually we had a workshop with the Philippines 2 weeks ago. One reason why most MSMEs in the Philippines managed to survive despite COVID was because they went digital, right? They began selling their products online. So in our framework, we should also be able to assess to what extent MSMEs in Zimbabwe have gone digital. How many of them are selling their products online? If you look at, I think you might know it, it's called AVAC Arts. It's a hub in Zimbabwe, AVAC Arts, which only works with our sculptures. These guys who make beautiful sculptures. Those guys were able to sell their products online. You could buy a Zimbabwean piece of art online, and then they'll ship it to any part of the world, right? It's only because they managed to find a way to market their tools. I can order vegetables, tomatoes, cabbages while sitting in my home in the US and have them delivered to my family in Zimbabwe, because they are also MSMEs that are in the vegetable market who managed to go digital, right? They sell their products online and they deliver to your doorstep, right? So we should also have that ability to track MSMEs that have gone digital. This will also be linked to the areas where you touched on access to designated workspace for MSMEs. Some of them no longer need the workspace, which might be provided by the local authorities. If I can go home and sell my products online, I might not need that space. Then you can go maybe to another operator. So you need to capture all these elements. Another important area maybe we can, as a country, try to capture is remittances to Zimbabwe are now a huge contribution to our economy, about $2 billion, right? That's what you're talking about. If you want to assess vulnerability of MSMEs and other issues, can we also collect data on how many MSMEs benefit from remittances? There are private flows that I sent to my family to help my brothers and sisters start their operations. In most cases, those do well, they tend to survive because they have access to finance, but that finance is coming from remittances. That will allow you to separate MSMEs that can borrow and maybe survive, and then there are others that survive on relationships abroad, and that's where you can also capture where our remittances are going. And then the last issue has to do with I heard the government, the president talk of the whole of government, whole of society approach. But to what extent is the whole of government approach being applied to MSMEs? Can they really say they have access to digital platforms that are provided by the ministry? To what extent do they use them, right? Of course, we know that there are challenges in most countries where governments are still trying to move to what we call e-governance, right? But as UNDESA, we have a division that supports governments, for instance, to establish these e-governance platforms that can also benefit MSMEs. Actually, we have Zimbabwe is not a part of that project, right? The e-governance platform for MSMEs, but maybe we can have that discussion with the ministry to say, look at how you can set up systems that allow your MSMEs to register, to do so many things online without necessarily having to go. With the lockdown measures, many could not come to visit any office, so they couldn't really register. But if you had an e-governance system that is accessible, then that would be useful. So some of those things can be captured maybe in some of your performance indicators, and you can try to simplify them. It's a simple issue. Do you have access to the internet? Have you set up any platform to sell your products? And to what extent do you really utilize e-governance services provided by the local authority or by the national authority? Thank you.
Thank you for those contributions. Dr. Mshonga, any reactions?
Okay, thanks a lot, colleagues, for the comprehensive review comments and the suggestions. I'll capture them in my revision document. First of all, I would like maybe to have maybe a discussion on this area where we are talking about. I think there's a colleague who mentioned the issue to do with that after receiving your registration from NASA, from EMA, from other agencies, then you don't need, you mentioned that you don't need an operating license from local authority. I just want to, I'm failing to comprehend that. I'm failing to understand, to appreciate that. Because even if you are a mining house without all those things, you need also to be registered with the local authorities. So let's have a discussion on that area. That's why normally when they're talking about formalization, they say if you've got an operating license with a local authority, you are formalized. It means that you have also complied with the tax issues, NASA, this and that, this and that. But to say that you have got all those documents, then you don't need an operating license from a local authority. Maybe if there can be some light shed on that area so that we appreciate much better before I can respond to other issues.
Can I suggest that we don't go into debates? I think the point is made though, that there is a risk. So what we probably need is some process mapping and then see where we may be losing some data and where there's scope to gain. So it would not really benefit us to then sort of like go into exchanges on that particular issue. But maybe what would be useful is if we focus on the framework and what's coming out in terms of the way it is structured at the moment. In addition to the earlier 4 items that came up in the first round of comments, it sounds to me like we have 4 additional areas that the framework needs to consider. One is incentive structures for MSMEs. Then we've got the tracking of vulnerability as a second area. Third area is disaggregation. And then 4th area is digitalization. So I think if we just make those notes, and then in the group work, we can then see how we actually take those forward.
Some of the issues are so fundamental that we need to discuss them whilst they are they are still fresh in us. Was when you are talking about the data being the local authorities, then there are other operators who can operate without local authority operating license. That need to be clear. It's an issue that we cannot leave. I think let's have that debate from guys from local authority, from the participant. I think it just maybe you can enlighten me further so that we appreciate that there are some business that can operate without a local authority operating license after getting NASA approvals, this and that, EMA approvals. I think maybe it doesn't take much time.
Okay, short interventions from the local authorities present. What is your response to that comment? That somebody can operate without a license from the local authority?
Sorry, I'm not from the local authority, but I can give a comment on the point. My comment is basing from the presenter. It speaks to the nature of the registration processes in our country, targeting the same person using different ways. So this is where I'm not sure her name, Madam who is in front. She said we need to harmonize that. That's fragmentation on its own. Where sometimes when you then want to go to another step as an SME or informal trader, you are told another form of a license required, which you may not have. Yet in another space, you can still operate with this other registration without any challenge. So in terms of the data on that, to be frank, at this juncture is too problematic. But it is good for noting that that's the context of the operational environment. It is just the same with what we're talking about when you ask for the definition of SMEs. I think the ministers referred us to the Act, okay? But I remember previously, we also used to have problem to say that definition was not taking care of the informal economy players. That's why now it came to be micro, so that it takes care of that space which was not being taken care of. So this is exactly what it is. But what is key is for us to note that there is a gap. And now as you look at your indicators, you may need to identify how best you can put a monitoring tool to say, is that gap being covered? That's why we spoke of key ministries to come together and have a collective understanding on how to formalize the informal economy or how to support the SMEs so that the language becomes one. Thank you.
Okay, shall we take other comments? Or is it still on the same matter? If it's on the same matter, I think it's clarified, right? So we can move on to other issues. So basically it simply boils down to issues of coherence. I'd framed it broadly to say coherence. We can split our hairs in terms of what are the components of coherence. But I think the point that the consultant should take is that we need some indicator in terms of coherence, which will then be between local, within central government itself, and then between central government and local authorities. So it could be something that relates to that ease of registration. So it's just it's a question of adding to the set of indicators that we have under ease of registration. And I'm sure when we look at what others have done, there are lots of examples there that we can pick from. Okay. So there are some new hands within this row. The gentleman moving the microphone has resigned without tendering.
Thank you, Mr. Facilitator. Sorry, I think I missed the last part of the discussion. I was attending to other issues. I might take you back, but quickly let me respond to the issue of operating without a local authority license. Yeah, we need to understand that SME sector has got two areas of operation where we are talking of in the formal sector and in the informal sector. Because of the high cost of compliance, one might be registered with the registrar of companies, but the cost of getting an operating license from the local authority, you may choose not to do that. It is now the issue of information sharing between the regulating authorities. Which one comes first? The registrar of companies or an operating license? When a local authority is issuing an operating license, what is it considering? When the registrar of companies is issuing those registration certificates, or ZIMRA is issuing the tax clearance, what is it considering? We have got some sectors where someone will operate without the local authorities, see, operating license. This goes back now to the issue of our background when we are coming up with this monitoring framework. I think the consultant, to some extent, there was supposed to be done an SME sector mapping to identify the architecture of this sector. Going back to a document which you have referred to, the Finscope survey of 2012, that was the methodology used there was household based. That's when they managed to come up with the various sectors, and then they would clarify whether that person is operating informally or formally. Then they will calculate and come up with the issues to say there's so much money which is circulating in the informal sector and so much money which is operating in the informal sector. And I did also realize that it was sector-based, depending on the characteristics of the informal sector. So the issue of the sector mapping is a very critical issue here. Having done that, I think there is a very important thing to look at. Our key performance indicators should not be just coming from somewhere else. I think we need to be guided by our national micro, small, and medium enterprise policy if it's there, because it is its outcomes, it has got its outputs, it has got its impacts. What kind of key performance indicators can we draw from our national SME policy, since that national policy is also linked to what? To our NDS1. So that document is a key document as we try to come up with the key performance indicators for our monitoring framework. Further, let me come to the issue of definition. That definition which we have in our act and also maybe in being implemented in the policy, that definition was not shared with other stakeholders. 1. 2, that definition, for one, actually, to classify you that you are an SME, you need to have technical knowledge and you need to have technical equipment, because there's a formula. If you don't have the appropriate software, you may not classify me in which category are you classifying me as. So that definition, yes, it's there, but applicability is very difficult. So when I'm going to local authorities for an operating license, they will just say, Mudzingwa Private Limited, are you an SME? Then I will say yes. Are you getting what I'm saying? All the agencies, are we understanding how are we applying that formula to classify an SME? Zimstat, yes, can say, but are they classifying SMEs according to that formula? Which formula are they using to classify SMEs? On a broader note, this exercise is very important. I would like to applaud the Ministry of Women Affairs, Gender, Community, and SME Development, and also the sponsor and our consultants. In line with the government's agenda of devolution, once our monitoring framework is clear at a national level, I'm seeing it's at a macro level. With the devolution agenda, we can now localize this to provincial, at provincial levels, to say at provincial level, how are SMEs performing? How are they contributing to national development? How are they being affected by these issues at provincial level? And even in calculations of our GDP, the contribution to the GDP at provincial level from the SME sector. So I'm looking in future, if we get our framework correct, surely we can support the issue of devolution and guide policymakers when we are intervening on how to assist the SME sector. Thank you.
Thank you for the contribution. I saw one other hand that was up before that intervention. Shall we come to Clark here and then let's take the gentleman at the back.
Thank you, Say. My contribution is on performance indicator, the performance indicator on social protection schemes for MSMEs to bounce back from crisis. I think in terms of the responsible agencies, NASA is omitted there, but NASA is the agency with the mandate to develop and administer social security schemes in the country. So I propose that NASA be added there. Then secondly, we are talking of social protection schemes for SMEs to bounce back from crisis, which is fine, but I think we need to broaden that to include not just social protection in terms of capacitating the entity or the enterprise to bounce back in terms of crisis, but to protect the workers themselves against contingencies such as old age, injury, death, and so forth. I think we need to broaden that. And thirdly, I think we need also to maybe to add an indicator on decent work and occupational safety and health at the workplace as an indicator of performance in the area of MSMEs. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we come to Clark.
Yes, thank you very much, facilitator, moderator. I just want to have a quick suggestion regarding the outcome indicator on the rate of MSC formalization. And linking to that, I'm thinking maybe we could think of relevant output level indicators, such as to monitor policy mechanism, providing like a roadmap or a structure about MSC formalization horizontally across national and local level. Vertically across national and local level, but also horizontally among different government departments to enhance the coherence. This is one suggestion for the output level indicator. And also very much agree with colleagues' comments that to enhance formalization, we need simplified policy mechanisms, but also mechanisms motivating MSCs to register themselves as formalized business. So maybe we could also consider indicator monitoring the policies that motivate MSCs to formalize and register their business, such as tax breaks. And also in other countries where our MSC project work, we also find that formalization is linked with MSC fund. So formalized MSCs are able to receive funding support from MSC fund in terms of concessional loans or credit guarantees. So these are the encouraging mechanism for MSCs to register themselves. And also I would just like to quickly follow the point of Mr. Sibanda regarding the degree of MSC digitization. And certainly in the area of digitization, e-governance could be a useful tool to provide low cost and a clear way for MSCs to register. In this regard, we work with different countries. For example, in Singapore, there is the Ministry of Industry has launched a mobile app on the mobile phone. So MSC entrepreneurs can register themselves through the app program, and they can get their registration approved in a number of days. I recall could be a week or slightly more than that. It's just an example about e-governance, but also in relation to the MSC digitalization, that will also require capacity building for MSC entrepreneurs regarding how to upload MSC business onto the online market and online platform, and further, how to link the online sales with the offline logistic management to reduce supply cost and keep business competitive. I think these are just some few comments for the consideration of Mr. Mushunga. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I see 2 hands up. It's almost 1 o'clock. Okay, if the colleagues can be very brief and straight to the point, and then we can take the 2 comments.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Doc, for the detailed framework, monitoring framework. I just have 3 quick comments. The first one is in terms of data sources for MSMEs. I would like also maybe to just let the floor know that SIRDC, last year in 2021, we conducted a national survey on manufacturing SMEs in Zimbabwe. This survey was officially launched in April. So that could also be a key source of data when you are compiling a framework. And then the second one is on databases. I think we are also not looking on the issue of databases. They are very key when you want to come up with a monitoring framework. And currently there are fragmented databases. The ministry has its own database. Associations, they also have their own databases. So maybe it's just maybe a question or a comment. How far are we in terms of trying to come up with a comprehensive database that can be taking sources from different associations? There are separate databases that are out there, but they are very fragmented. And then the third one, I'd like to comment on the growth of SMEs. From our survey, we managed to see that SMEs are finding it very difficult to move from one category of size category to the next. For example, it's very difficult for them to move from micro to small. It's difficult again from them to move from small to medium, let alone grow into a large corporate. So it's very key for this monitoring framework to be able to see over a period of time, maybe let's say 2-3 years after the development of the framework, how many of the SMEs are growing. You might be talking about trying to formalize them and all that, but if you don't have data on the rate of growth, are they really growing, or maybe they are micro for more than 10 years? So we need to come up with strategies to assist them in terms of the growth. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Just a quick one. I also noted that maybe you kept referring to bylaws, which is a good thing, but I think it has got its own limitations. For example, there will be other cities that go further than a bylaw. Issues to do with the whether it's an informal economy policy or whether it's a informal enhancement strategic plan. I'm being specific to the city of Bulawayo. And also whether it's a small document like a memorandum of understanding. So maybe if we just say bylaws, because we have got a bylaw, 181 of 2020, but then maybe I feel if we just leave it there, we might miss other legal and policy frameworks that exist. Then also towards smart cities, I got the submission from my colleague here on SMEs themselves using ICTs. But also let's also look at the issues to do with the agencies themselves. For example, to be specific, the local authority. You've got your geospatial technologies, which can be used for better visualization, better explanations. So we also need to say also, I think he was talking about e-governance. How far are local authorities or agencies, how far have they gone towards that aspect? So I think those were my submissions. And also, lastly, the local economic development. I think one of the colleagues was then saying, fair enough, we'll be looking at it from a national perspective, but this thing is going to the local level. So what key performance indicators, maybe this is not a discussion for now, but let's think of the KPIs for local economic development itself. What is happening? What could be the issues? And how best can we measure the contribution of the MSMEs towards local economic development? And I think that would be very critical. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for those contributions. Okay, it's 4 minutes after 1. We've had some rich contributions. There are some clear areas where we need to discuss, suggest some additional indicators. So we have the broad categories, which I hope you've captured. Okay, and then we'll then see how maybe we can rework part of the program to accommodate some of the recommendations that have come up. But if we are to keep to the schedule as planned, we'll have to come back from lunch at exactly 2 o'clock. And then we'll have the opportunity to go into groups and discuss some of the issues further within the groups. We'll provide you with the guidance for the group work when you come back. So we'll meet back in this room and then we'll divide you up into groups and you can work in different corners. Okay. So if we can break now for lunch, I'm sure everybody has received a ticket for your lunch. And tomorrow the tickets will be given only to those that have actively participated. Okay, so see you at 2 o'clock.